So I haven't done a video like this before. I just wanted to give sort of a organic, off the cuff explanation of one of my songs. And this one I want to talk about is Universal Flame. Um, well, my songs always have sort of a philosophical, mystical bent. And when it comes down to it, these things are hard to talk about for anybody. A lot of times we're talking about theories of everything that connect pieces of notions of reality together that we wouldn't otherwise say had some sort of absolute validity. Other than that, it sits in our hearts as some sort of intuitive truth. Those are the types of things that I like to dance around. I generally come from a logical scientific perspective, but I think that when you get to the nature of consciousness, the nature of reality, we start to go off into theory of everything land, and no one really is the arbiter of truth there. So universal flame is this idea that we all sort of came from the same source. And I know that all of us want to define that in different ways. And hey, what about this? What about that? But let's just draw it back. Let's go out into nature and look at the way that the water rolls downhill and supports and creates life. Roll the tape backwards. Where did it all come from? Where did the plants and the sustenance for life and the seeds, where were they planted? And where were the seeds for those seeds planted? A lot of us, in the general paradigm of today, can agree that, hey, we're made of stars, the heavy metal elements that, came before us. That whole, table of elements thing, where you got hydrogen and helium and, the formation of heavy elements. It's almost like the cosmos sort of, intuitively knew what to do at those times. There was no marionette pulling the strings of hydrogen to become helium, but because of the nature of the heat, because of the nature of the variables present at that time, stars were formed. And those stars went on to churn the elements that now sift through our bodies. And so now, once again, universal flame, if we go back and we say that at one time there was some sort of hot magma source, some type of ultimate cosmic conflagration that you might be able to call the universal flame before hydrogen became helium. Whatever, we're in the realm of talking about things like Big Bang and stuff like that. So just imagine you're watching some documentary and they've taken you all the way back, and now you see this universal flame. And from there, if we were to sort of, in this funny way, think about the pieces of ourselves, the atoms, the elements, the reverberations, sort of going back to that time, we'd all be holding hands. We'd all be embracing each other. We'd all be together. We have emanated from the same spot chemically, evolutionarily, however you want to put it. And even if you go as far as saying, well, I'm religious, I think theologically we all come from the Godhead. Okay, well, there was a time where we emanated from the source. And in doing this dance of becoming alive, in doing the dance of sort of becoming a conscious entity, which, by the way, began to shuffle the elements of reality a lot quicker than these deep intuitive processes that we describe, star formation and hydrogen becoming helium. There's something unique about the catalyzation of evolution and chemical change that becomes about when you have discrete conscious actors suddenly that are sort of interacting in this conscious web. And so then what's the downside of that? When you finally do the chemical dance all the way down to humanhood, for example, what do you lose? Well, we look around us and we find estrangement, we find hate. If we find, by the nature of it, by the nature of our primate politics and our in-group versus out-group, which, by the way, is just another natural formation of mimetic evolution and cultural evolution. But nonetheless, this organic process sort of burdens us with an estrangement that every once in a while we peek beyond and say, oh, you're right, it came from the same spot. Like, we all came from that same universal flame. And so now, looking more specifically to the song, if you, it's a precious flame. We're here together. It's a sort of a sacred dance, and round and trance, because we're losing sort of the original nature of becoming together, being together, and instead trading it for a discrete consciousness that is nonetheless part of the whole, but now has sort of, by mental walls, separated itself. And then, you can kind of get the rest of the first verse there. And then, one chance in this forum, sure, we can talk about reincarnation. But at the same time, I would wager to say that even if we're thinking of like a multiverse reality, the person that you are now, with your memories, all the variables that have ever arisen to ever imprint your brain and your personality, there's a fair bet, maybe you could say, even though we're talking theories of everything, that you'd come around in this specific form with these specific memories once. So even if you come back around in some other form, or you're reborn as a bird, or whatever you want to say, this specific form that you've been gifted with this time around, you sort of have it once. And you have the option each time to sort of come awake to the whole, sort of like you could say in some cultures, like the shaman sees the end of time and holds that vision in his consciousness at all times. There's many different religious ways to put that you remind yourself that it all comes from God. I'm not usually one that uses those types of terms, but you can see that people are touching on the same button. And so one chance in this form, we got to open. We can't shut that door, you got to open yourself to that. The more you close yourself into the discrete consciousness of estrangement, the more you lose out on an opportunity within your own heart and for others, and sort of for the catalyzation of consciousness at large. So let's open it, let's not close it. To realize with the truth, there's always more, that our little discrete fishbowl of consciousness will always, by its nature, not be able to grasp the whole, and that the truth is really going to be greater than anything that you can think of yourself, even collectively, at least at this point. There's more. What came before. And so, just this idea that we all came from the same place, which, again, we can inverse here and say that we're all going to the same place, alpha, omega type eschatology thinking. And then the second verse gets interesting, because now imagine that we've weaved through this initial stage of the, cosmic evolution, and now we're here in these discrete human bodies, and somehow you wake up and you remember, oh crap, it's like everybody forgot. It's like we all forgot about that universal flame. And so it's like, we have these information wars, which is like a mimetic evolution. So again, it's like by the necessity of the way we evolve our minds and our cultures, we have to go through this like amalgamation and dissolution, and that creates war and strife and, disparate peoples and all that. And so you forget that. And, sort of the nature of capitalism sometimes, even though it has many good aspects that I could talk about, also can divide us and sort of, put us in a category of consumer and instead of participant, instead of creator, sort of indebted, a prisoner to a certain culture, you might be able to say. Maybe that's a little bit overstatement, but you hear what I'm saying. And then once you get there, you see that the voice in the song in the second verse says, oh, but please stay so warm, like that flame, even though I forgot you, I need you. I need you to stay warm as we go on into the evolution of the cosmos. Like things are just going to get more difficult and colder. And if I can't hold that vision strongly, it's going to get really, really cold. And if it gets really cold, I'm going to need you. So please, I didn't mean to snub you. And that's part of the second verse there. And then, of course, we have the chorus there, even though I don't really like this structure of verse, chorus. And then at the very end, it's, hey, we have one more chance to dance this dance. Don't let it slip away this time. It's like pleading with myself to hold that vision of togetherness and use it to, guide your every move. Sometimes I have this feeling that you can have a direction. You can try to plan out your life and say, okay, left turn here, right turn here. But when it comes down to it, we all have the capacity to see that vision, I believe. And for some of us, unfortunately, it's much more opaque by the nature of the life that we've lived or the circumstances we've been gifted with or given. But for those of us that have been lucky enough to sort of touch upon that feeling, that vision, hold on to it. It's a wellspring of love. It's a wellspring of togetherness. And as long as we hold on to that It's not so much about the direction, but just about applying that vision at every step.